the Society of Jesus. As far as my last count, meron na po kaming 50 saints yata, no? I may be mistaken. Father Xavier Olin, baka gusto mo akong itama, no? Si Father Xavier Olin ang magaling sa pagbibilang ng mga santo namin. But at my last count, the last saint, Jesuit saint, or the last canonized Jesuit was Saint Alberto Hurtado. I may be mistaken. That was like what, 6 years ago. Okay, so anyway, my dear friends, we remember the saints of the Jesuits. Here is what Pope Francis tells us about saints. The saints are not supermen, nor were they born perfect. They are like each one of us. They are people who, before reaching the glory of heaven, lived normal lives with joys and sorrows, struggles and hopes. What changed their lives? When they recognized God's love, they followed it with all their heart, without reserve or hypocrisy. They spent their lives serving others. They endured suffering and adversity without hatred and responded to evil with good, spreading joy and peace. This is the life of a saint. Being holy is not a privilege for the few. In baptism, we all have an inheritance to be able to become saints. Holiness is a vocation for everyone. Thus, we are called to walk on the path of holiness. And this path has a name and a face, the face of Jesus Christ. He teaches us to become saints. In the gospel, he shows us the way of the Beatitudes. And so, my dear friends, let us pray. Jesus, knowing your love, I offer myself to you today with no conditions, and I place myself at your service and the service of all your brothers and sisters. Amen. Okay, so my dear friends, that is our prayer for today. Holiness is the vocation of not just a few individuals, but all of us. Okay, my dear friends, maganda po ang ating episode ngayong umagang ito. Yes, by the way, you can also watch us via YouTube. My dear friends, kasi ngayon pong umaga, napapanahon ang ating pag-uusapan. Ano? We have a guest from the Emmaus Center, in particular, their Child Safeguarding Institute, CSI. Yes, we will introduce our guest later on. We will just take a short break, and then we'll talk about this pressing issue. How do we safeguard children? How do we protect the vulnerable? Okay, lalo na po sa mga taga-simbahan, ano? That is a very urgent issue. Okay, so pag-usapan po natin yan with our guest from Emmaus Center sa aming pagbabalik.
Back in a few, Katipuneros, so please stay tuned. We are now on YouTube. Watch all of our live episodes plus exclusive content in our channel at Radyo Katipunan FM. Don't forget to click subscribe and hit the bell to get the latest updates. Join Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle as he delivers to us the preachings of the Sunday's Gospel that's awe-inspiring, yet easy to understand and appreciate. Let us all listen to the Word of God here on The Word Exposed on Air, only on Radyo Katipunan 87.9 FM. At simulan ng inyong umaga sa mga magagandang refleksyon tungkol sa ating buhay at pananampalataya. Kasama sina Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle ng Manila, Father J. Boy Gonzales at Father Nono Alfonso ng Kapisanan ni Jesus, Father Cali Llamado ng Manila Cathedral, at Binibining Risa Sinson Kaupeng ng Light of Jesus Community dito sa Kapit Pandasal sa Radyo Katipunan 87.9 FM. Radyo Katipunan. News, insights, inspiration. Radyo Katipunan. Down from the hill and down to the world. Radyo Katipunan, the voice of the Blue Eagle. The Jesuit Hour. Get to know the Jesuits. Discover their spirituality, their history, their ministries. The Jesuit Hour. Anything Jesuit, everything Jesuit. The Jesuit Hour.
My dear friends, at nakikita nyo na po sa ating screen ang ating guest for today, this morning. Yes, welcome back sa ating programa, The Jesuit Hour, here at Radyo Katipunan 87.9 FM. And pakilala ko po siya. Siya po ay si Doktora Titay Vina from Emmaus Center, in particular from the Catholic Safeguarding Institute of the Emmaus Center. Thank you so much.
Salamat, Father,
Yeah.
sa pag-imbita.
Oo. So, and of course, I'm so proud that kababayan ko po siya.
Iyo.
Iyo baga? Diyos mabalos.
Iyo ng God.
Iyo.
Diyos mabalos.
Okay, so siguro you can tell us first about your professional background. Before Emmaus, where were you working?
Okay. For me, it's like coming full circle, no, to find myself in safeguarding at this time, no. I started my professional life as a JVP.
Yes,
and I was
JVP po
doing,
siya.
Kami yung first batch. No? We were doing student organizing. But soon after that, I got involved with the women's movement. And this was really the early years of the women's movement in the
70s.
Philippines. Hindi naman, grabe ka naman. 1980s.
80s na. Okay, sorry.
So it was and of course during that time I got involved with all these women's issues. And I was exposed to women who were also abused and
Wow.
women experiencing violence, no, domestic violence. Siyempre kasabay na diyan yung mga anak nila.
Correct, oo.
So, and then I left it, no, that field. Hindi pa pala and then I became exposed to other areas of social development, rural development and rural agrarian reform, mga ganyan.
This was after your after college.
After college,
Anong year
mga
ka ba?
1980 po. Tapos
Batch 80, okay.
Batch 80. Tapos then in 1990 nag-resign ako from development work to kasi pumunta kami ng States and also to take care of my children. Then
Pursue studies.
After when I came back here, nag-aral ako sa Loyola ng CEFAM at saka pastoral ministry. Then we went back to the States and that's when I pursued counseling.
Yun.
Where I took my master's in science and PhD sa Loyola College. And so of course as a psychotherapist, I was exposed to working with patients who had sexual abuse experiences. And then when I came back, nagtrabaho ako dito bilang pastoral psychotherapist sa Emmaus. And so mas lumawak yung aking pag-unawa, not just for the lay, but experiencing working with this issue of abuse for people in the church.
Kasi
Specifically mga religious clergy.
Kasi yung Emmaus, ang trabaho niya talaga for the church, right? Priests, nuns,
And also
seminarians,
and also the lay. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Oo. So I got that experience, no, for this particular population.
Okay.
Sige.
Sige. And so, tell us about this Catholic Safeguarding Institute. Paano ba itong natatag?
So,
This is very recent, right?
Yes, 2 years old. Ang nangyari kasi, colleague ko si Doc Gabi Diliaco.
Kabatch ko yun. Kabatch ko sa college. Yes, batch 91. Ate, batch 91 kami. Manay.
Ano ka, Manoy? So, magkatrabaho kami dyan sa Emmaus. And then, he got appointed to be a member of the commission on the Pontifical Commission on the Protection of Minors sa Vatican.
Correct.
And then, in his exposure of this field there, he got to work with the Center for Child Protection in the Gregorian University. Itong CCP, which is headed by Father Hans Zollner, isang Jesuit psychologist also, and is really the parang masasabi natin na one of the main proponents of safeguarding in the Catholic Church. He heads this program. Nagkaroon siya ng idea. They were developing courses. So naisip ni Gabi, and at the same time sina Inge also, and I think Father Bugi attended a workshop on safeguarding
In Rome.
I think so. So parang nag-come together yung idea na let's do something
Yeah.
for the Philippine Church.
Of course.
So when Gabi came home, he said, he invited me and another priest, si Monsignor Ramon Masculino, na at the time executive director ng
Maskulino, hindi maskulado.
Moscovado. Masculino.
Saan si attach? What diocese?
He used to be Iloilo, but he
Okay.
used to be the executive director of Eckler. No? So he at saka
Eclair, di ba
for
pagkain yun? Yung pastry yan? Eclair.
social ka. So he was the executive director of the commission on clergy.
Okay.
And then for the CBCP, he invited me and Monsignor to attend the course of safeguarding in Rome.
In Rome.
So one semester yon.
Okay.
So, and that course really gave us this perspective on what safeguarding is, and in the context of the Catholic
Ayun.
Church. So for me, I think we got really the best of the best in the Catholic Church, and I think from their pool of resources. So it was really eye-opening for me and for my classmates, kasi we were about 26 and it was an international
From different countries.
From the US and from developing countries. So makikita mo yung breadth of the problem, at the same time the depth of what was being done. Makita mo very uneven.
May isisingit lang ako. Did you know that Dr. Gabi Dillaco, he was appointed, di ba? Part of that was actually suggested. The name was suggested by Cardinal.
I think,
Di ba? Si Cardinal. Kasi si Cardinal then was in Rome and he was looking for, Rome daw was looking for per country for mga experts.
Yes.
And si Father Carlson gave the name.
Yeah, at that time I think he was our head. I'm not sure.
Okay, so when you were there in Rome, you said you were amazed, you were impressed by the, di ba, yung international flavor. But before we go on let's have a definition of terms. What do we mean by safeguarding?
Okay, safeguarding is actually maganda yan kasi it is sort of a new term, but it's always, I think, been there.
Okay.
Na safeguarding means from the point of view of an organization or a ministry, for example, it's all the activities, all the initiatives that an organization does in order to ensure that the organization, through all its agents, employees, mga programs niya, ensure that the minors, the children, vulnerable adults are safe when they come in contact with this organization.
Okay.
Whether through the programs, through the people, through the physical space, everything. So when we talk about safeguarding, the usual, why do I say this na parang it's always been there? It's always been there, but I think the consciousness of what it really means is really lacking. Because people usually associate safeguarding with child protection.
Yes.
And usually child protection child protection is really just one aspect of safeguarding, which is what to do when there is a case, what to do when there is a suspicion or a concern with child sexual abuse. But when we talk about safeguarding, which is really an umbrella term, that is only one pillar of safeguarding. So this is intervention when there is a problem or concern. But the other and very important aspect, which is many times ignored, is the prevention. How do you ensure that you are creating and maintaining a safe environment? So, and this is really very important work, because the more that you have in place in your organizations, in your programs, in the way you recruit people, in the way you, for example, if you're a school, the way you teachers and students relate with one another, the more that this is spelled out in terms of safeguarding, the lesser the chances of using this.
Correct. Pero yung safety here refers to safe sexually. Kasi pwedeng di ba, yung madaganan ng mga struktura, hindi yun, we're not referring to that, di ba?
Well, of course, the focus here is sexual abuse.
Yes,
but what we are talking about is abuse in general, and we cannot, of course, the focus of the church now is child sexual abuse, kasi yan talagang gumulo. But we are not taking it out of context, because in the presence of other abuses, emotional, psychological, physical neglect, in the presence of these different abuses, in fact, the risk of sexual abuse increases. Now, what is a better term that we use for that?
Okay.
Relational safety.
Relational, I like
so
that.
When I relate with you or with him, and when you relate with me and you with me, you feel safe. I am safe with myself, relating with you. You feel so you put that. That's why when we talk about safeguarding, we look at it not just from the point of view of doing your service, but from the point of view of three, and that's why we call it tripod of relational safety. I am safe as a person, safe self. How am I safe with myself? No. How are people safe with me? When and do I have the safe community that will help me, that will nurture me to be safe with myself, who are honest with me? Then hopefully, from this safe self and safe community, I will be indisposed, to when I go out to my ministry, to implement, to do a safe ministry.
Yon.
So makikita, it's really
Maganda,
relational safety on three levels: with myself, with my community, and with a ministry. If you only look, ang mga nakikita ko because part of my work is really to do the education and formation of the program. Most of the mindset about safeguarding, it's really about what to do with the organization. They leave out this communal and personal. It cannot be done. Kasi what you do here is very much attached to who you are and what you are as a community.
We can say that that's the secular approach for as long as yung may mga protocols in place, diba, yung mga ganun, pero that's not enough. Sabi mo nga, dapat safe self, safe community. May pa ako, yung in terms of, again, definition of terms, what do we mean by children? And yung secondly, yung vulnerable adults.
Maganda rin yan kasi it's very important.
Kasi may diba, may edad dapat. So when we say children, 0 to?
0 to below 18.
18, okay.
Pero ang maganda niyan kasi, ang kailangan nating tinan, 0 to below 18, that's quite a big range.
Yes.
You're actually talking about two types of groups of people. Those who are pre-adolescent, and then those who are adolescent. So why is it important to look at this range, these two groups of people? When you're talking about children, this group of children who are pre-adolescents, and they see life very differently than the adolescents look at life. The way they are affected by life, they approach life, they're very different. When they're affected by trauma, they're very different also. So it's important that developmentally they're very different. Although yung technical is they
correct.
Now when you talk about vulnerable adults, you're talking about not only those who are who have impairments in cognitive, physical, psychological, no, mental. But you are also now, kahit yung Vatican ginawa na ito, they're included are those who are in a power relationship. Ibig sabihin, those who are vulnerable by virtue of their position in a power relationship.
So hindi lang, I don't know if you're allowed to say, yung, hindi lang mga special?
O hindi lang.
Hindi special, kundi...
No. Yes. So for example, sino yan? Yung teacher at saka estudyante, boss at saka employee.
Nako, si Justin, boss ko dito si Justin.
Yun. How safe are you? How safe is he in your organism?
Okay.
Pare at saka yung
Parishioner.
O kaya counselor, counselee. So, pag pinag-usapan na yan, makikita mo na yung safeguarding, yung field of safeguarding. Kasi akala nila yung mga bata lang at saka hindi. Safeguarding is really an umbrella term. The minors. So when you talk about minors, that's again an umbrella term. Nandyan yung mga bata, yung below 18. Nandyan din yung pre-adolescents, adolescents, and the vulnerable adults. So of course, makikita mo that the breadth of safeguarding is really all of us. When you talk about relational safety, it really talks about all of us.
Okay. And all of this, itong programa ng Vatican was of course in reaction to yung mga sex scandals that hit the church in the 90s, di ba? Especially in the US. Yung ganun. So, it's good to know that the church is doing something. Kasi hindi ito masyadong, that's why I invited you, hindi masyadong pinag-uusapan na may ginagawa yung simbahan. Palaging sinasabi na anong ginagawa ni Pope Francis, di ba? Sa mga erring priests, for example. So may mga programa pala na ongoing.
Oo, meron. Pero nakakatawa kasi, well, I mean, ang simbahan, meron ng problema ng sexual abuse from way back na ng mga early Christian community.
Of course.
In fact, may magandang niyan si Doc Gabi.
So pinag-aralan nyo rin yun?
Oo, binibigay namin yan sa pagkikita ng mga
na matagal na.
Matagal na. And it's always been there. And efforts have been there. Noon merong nung early church, meron sila na kapag ang isang pare nang abuso ng bata, hanggang kamatayan hindi papakumunyonin.
Yung pare?
Kung sino man yung na church. So, ganun katindi. So, but then, of course, may mga lapses yan yan. And dito sa atin ngayon, ngayon sa recent na pagputok nitong issue na to, napilitan ng simbahan. Napilitan ng simbahan kasi ang dami ng yung clamor for accountability and transparency, to be responsible, to listen to the clamor of the cries of sumabog na yun. But different levels. Pero nung nauna ito doon sa Amerika, sa Ireland, sa Australia, yung sa iba't ibang mga developing countries, napilitan sila. But ito ngayon ang maganda. I think for me it's kairos for the whole church. Na because the church has now taken it upon itself to really focus on this problem. It is now the biggest institution on earth that can actually make a difference in addressing this issue. Why? Because of the sheer size of the church. Global church.
That's a nice way of putting it. Parang parang light at the end of the tunnel. Or God works in mysterious ways. Dinaanan ito ng simbahan. Now the church is a wounded healer. Diba? It has something to contribute, to share.
And part of it is really yung pag-admit ng simbahan na may mga pagkakamali talaga. May pagkakamali kung ano ang mga ginawa ng mga perpetrators sa simbahan, mga clerical or religious na na mga perpetrators.
Ang dami kong tanong sa iyo, ano,
Sige.
kasi I'm a priest myself, ano.
Oo.
So, when you were confronted with these cases, pinag-aralan niyo yung mga nature ng mga cases. Did you go
Tsaka
through?
sa therapy din. Nakikita ko yan sa namin yan sa...
Hindi ka ba what was your, kasi maraming may kakilala ko nung nalaman niya to, ay ayoko na maging Katoliko. What about you? What was your initial reaction, your further reaction?
Ganito. Well, of course, itong importante dyan, na ang tao, na isang tao na nagtatrabaho sa safeguarding for the church has to have spirituality. You cannot do this work without separate from a personal relationship with God. Because then you see, anong mangyayari? Makikita mo na bilang ikaw na nagtatrabaho, may sarili ka ding, you have to get in touch with your own vulnerabilities, with your own weaknesses. When you are in touch with that as a safeguarding person, hindi ka hindi ka makakahusga. At the same time, you also see in yourself na ang Diyos is also saving me. So because of my personal history also, when I began to work with Emmaus and working with different mga ganitong issues.
May tumpambok mo ka to eh.
At ayoko na magpaitim. Tama na to. When I started working, I felt na I've been prepared because if I myself was kind of floundering also with myself and with looking at myself as part of the church, it would have been scandalizing for me. I would have been scandalized. But I think I came to this point of my work na I was also already in a place na nakita ko na parte na yan, mahal ko ang simbahan. Kailangan yung nagtatrabaho from the point of view of safeguarding in the church. Has to love the church and has to decide that despite our questions about the church, we want to work within the church. Kasi kung if you are somebody na talagang you have very serious questions na you cannot work within the church, it will be very difficult. So may mga role for those people. Meron din mga tao na they find themselves that despite the contradictions, they can also work with the church and to journey with the people, both the victims and the perpetrators.
Okay, I have a difficult question. What about looking at the perpetrators? Merong iba, there were famous cases na namatay na. What was his name sa US? Si Gagan ba yun?
Gagan.
Di ba yung ilang mga bata ang inabuso niya? When you study their cases, di ba parang these horrible cases, anong assessment mo sa mga ganyang?
Well, assessment.
Are they evil or are they psychologically what? How do you
siguro, I think
categorize them?
Well, ang mga perpetrators kasi meron dyan na talagang mga disordered. Meron naman dyan.
From the beginning pa, from the start.
May sakit talaga. May sakit. And it's very difficult to treat them. That's why ang kailangan gawin dyan, tanggalin sa ministry. Ilayo. Kung vulnerable sila sa mga ganitong edad, tanggalin.
Tanggalin na.
Tanggalin. Hindi dahil wala silang due process. Kundi, from the point of view of safeguard, you want to lessen the further risk.
Okay.
Ngayon, yung iba naman, meron dyan na mga ang tinatawag situational. May mga psychological, may mga issues, na at some point in their lives,
something happens. Kaya ang importante dito, wag mag-burn out eh. I always see this in therapy. Mga nagwawala. Kasi
titingnan ng buhay mo, my God, lahat trabaho. As if yung pagkatao nandoon na lang. Makikita, and something gets awry along the way.
Naku, maraming mga Jesuit ganyan, trabaho. Precisely. And we see this, So, pag dyan, sino yung nandyan, may access. At the same time also meron sila na may mga din na itong mga perpetrators of minors,
hirap sila makaroon ng intimate relationship with
nako.
adults. Mas enjoy sila o mas may connection sila sa mga younger ones, mga adolescents.
Kasi hindi sila nasa-challenge. Or...
Hindi lang, maybe because the community does not challenge them.
Yeah.
Does not call out, teka muna, bakit ganyan ang ginagawa? Ganyan. That's why, for me, when I look at this, nakikita ko to sa clinical practice. The community has a very important role to play.
Yeah.
Na do not just look away.
Yeah.
Especially
Confront
because
it.
many perpetrators have double lives yan.
My
And many
God.
of them are really excelling in their
Oh my.
excelling in their public lives. Kaya pag siya?
Yeah.
Bait, ang galing-galing. How could she or he do that?
Yeah.
Pero
May double life pala.
Ngayon, ang wall niyan, habang these two lives, this person can manage. Ito, ganyan. Okay, matatago. But sasabog ito at some point, Panipis ng panipis yan hanggang boom.
Mabibisto na. Sasabog na siya.
Sasabog na. So,
Wow.
very important here is the community.
Okay.
Pero ang nakikita ko, anong klase ang community? Kung minsan it's not a very nurturing community. Yung bullying, chismis, competition, ridiculing,
Or indifference.
yung discrimination. So, ang dyan is this is the challenge, to
Okay.
make people feel that they are, of
Yeah,
course,
so
sa simbahan context ito ng simbahan.
Ang next question ko is, marami kasing kaso sa iba't ibang mga bansa. What about in the Philippines? Are you allowed to say?
Well, I mean, ang sinasabi, ganito yan.
Are we as vulnerable?
Yes. Ang nga dito is, alam mo, itong issue ng maganda yung pinakita sa amin ni Father Zollner yung mapa ng mundo. Nag-isimula dito tapos nag-i-spread yung pagputok.
Wow.
Pag ganon dumadami. Oo. And I think anecdotally,
Okay.
lahat siguro tayo may alam.
May alam,
no?
yeah.
Pero pagdating sa getting the hard numbers, mahirap kasi siya.
May mga nababalita like this foreign priest na nasa isang island, 'di ba? He abused several children.
Yes.
Pero yun nga, paisa-isa kasi yung sa US kasi like 3,000 cases, 'di ba yung sa Pennsylvania was the recent one, 4,000 cases. Sabi ko, wow. 'Di ba?
Well, dito sa atin, we do not know the extent, but it's happening.
Yeah.
And ang dyan is, kung titingnan mo na lang lahat ng mga tanungin mo, may mga alam yan.
Yeah.
May mga alam.
Ito, again, a difficult question. What about homosexuality? Sinasabi nila na part of the problem is the homosexuality in the priesthood, in the church.
Maganda kasi merong isang landmark study na pinagawa yung US, yung John Jay College na study. From 1950 to I think 2010. Si 2010. Basta yung ganun na
range.
Years. Pinag-aralan nila ano yung prevalence,
possible factors.
Prevalence, factors, tapos ano ba ito yung sitwasyon ng mga tao. Kita nila not celibacy, not homosexuality.
Wow.
Kasi bakit nila nasabi? Kasi nakita nila nung trinace nila yung pag-increase ng abuse, nag-peak at saka bumaba. Nandiyan pa rin yung celibacy at saka yung homosexuality.
Yeah.
Pero anong sinabi sa amin itong sa pag-aaral na but homosexuality, because of the taboo, because of the challenge to an integrated sexuality, which could also happen with heterosexuals, this is what puts persons at risk.
Yun.
So of course, ang kasi natin, ang isang mentalidad natin, pag si father ng girlfriend, parang tanggap kasi normal lalaki at babae. Pero pag mayroong isa father,
Si father nag-boyfriend.
oo, nag-boyfriend, parang mas
Oo. Mas skandalo. Oo.
But ang dyan, it's really the way you live out your sexuality.
Actually, parehong bawal.
Correct.
Di ba? Pareho naman bawal.
But I think for me it's really more difficult because it's a very hostile environment, no, for homosexuals to live at. And but both are called to celibate chastity. So how do you live that out?
Yes.
And how do you, as individually, how do you seek help? And how do you actually try to resolve your issues about this and to be able to be at peace with this? At the same time, do you have the community?
Yeah.
Do you have the community that supports you? At the same time, do you have the organizations which have clear guidelines for everyone? That there are behaviors that are acceptable, policies that are acceptable. Yun yung mga
Ang nabasa ko naman na parang kailangan daw i-differentiate yung homosexuality sa pedophilia. 'Di ba? Iba naman yun eh.
Oo, kasi pedophilia, makikita natin yung sa mga research, ang pedophilia is just like maybe 5%, 10% of all child sexual abuse. 90% adolescents.
Yun.
Adolescents.
Di ba they have a term?
Ephebophilia. So kung sa simbahan, sino yan? Yung access sa mga sa Kristan, di ba?
Sa
Mga sa youth,
seminarista,
mga yung mga seminarista.
Yeah.
So, yan yung nakita na kahit hindi sa simbahan, marami.
And then of course, ako ang personal ko is issue ko is power.
Yes.
'Di ba? Power eh. Sabi ko nga may kadebate akong mga pare sa Radio Veritas pa no na 'di ba nung unang pumutok yung sa US the year 2001 yung pinag-usapan nito, tapos sila yung zero tolerance.
Yes.
'Di ba? Tapos ngayon nang lumabas na naman itong sa Pennsylvania, pareho pa rin yung yung discourse. Sabi ko ibahin natin kasi like for example ako Miss Titay ang kine-question ko yung the absoluteness of power in parishes. Kasi sa napag-aralan namin sa canon law, in the parish, the parish priest is absolute. In the diocese, the bishop is absolute. So I go, what does that mean? So halimbawa sa parish level, yung pare, he can dissolve nasa canon law the parish council except the treasurer or his finance people. Kailangan may accountability doon, no? So sabi ko, sobrang powerful ng ng pare, 'di ba?
And I think that is one aspect that breeds yung ng reality of clericalism.
Yeah, oo.
So nagkakaroon ng ganyang dynamics, no? Yung abuse, no?
Yeah.
Pero ang ganda kasi, well, first of all, when we talk about sexual abuse, it has to be understood as abuse on 3 levels. Sexual abuse as itong physical, sexual violence on the person. So it's violence, no? Number 2, it's the abuse of power. So many times, kung ikaw wala ka namang, if you do not have that power over me, many times I can say no to you.
Yeah.
But many times people who
because of the power.
parang kung ako,
your job is at stake, boss mo, 'di ba?
I will promote you if you go to bed with me. So parang I will pass you if you 'di ba? So parang ako, 'di ba?
Yeah. And then the third
next
one
is abuse of trust. I trusted you. Yung mga magulang, iiwan sa iyo yung mga anak nila, thinking na may children will be in good hands. Pagbalik ko, may nangyari na sana. So always yung tatlong yan. Always ang tatlong yan.
At sa mga pare, yung mga kaso ng mga pare, yung tatlong yan,
And
pasok na pasok.
That's why makikita mo ang difference ng mga biktima ng clerical abuse at saka yung mga hindi clerical abuse. It's ang palagi kong sinasabi, kung ako ni-rape ng tatay ko, and that is already unthinkable, no? Pero naisip ko, meron pa akong Diyos na mapupuntahan eh. Pero kung ang itong paro ko, o chaplain namin, nag-abuse sa akin, kanino pa ako pupunta?
Because the priest is, di ba?
Another Christ, alter Christ. The person of Christ. So, makikita mo ang difference. And the difficulty of no, but of course trauma, no, iba-iba naman sa tao.
Yeah.
Very difficult.
Okay. So what is being done? Yung sa parang ang ganda ng ano niya, CSI, Crime Scene Investigation. Pero sa inyo, Catholic Safeguarding Institute. So what are your programs? Ano?
Nag-evolve ito sa amin, ang nag-evolve sa amin really is education and training. Kasi makikita natin na part of this big challenge is education. People have to know what this is all about, what the issue is all about. So ang ano namin ngayon is giving trainings, no? So we have this trainings to understand, to orient them on what the issue is, what safeguarding is on these three
So
levels.
primarily priests. You're training priests?
No, hindi. Well, of course, naging ganun ang ano. So ngayon, mga diocesan, mga religious na mga presbyteriums naghihingi ng mga trainings. Tapos meron din kaming for the public, but usually it's really for the public of the church, usually mga iba-ibang grupo, kahit mga lay dumadami na. Then usually pag kinuha mo yung binigyan namin ng mga workshop itong mga kaparian, yung mga religious, susunod na yan yung mga ministries nila, mga eskwelahan nila, yung mga institutions nila. So pag ganun yan.
Multiplying.
Oo, so and we were able, and all of these are geared towards in most of our workshops is geared towards developing their guidelines. Importante kasi na kapag may sinabi kang may guidelines kami sa child protection, child protection.
Meron na kami.
But usually ang nakikita ko dyan, it's really just kapag may problema. Tapos usually ang naggagawa yung sense of ownership by the body, for example ng buong organisasyon, limited lang din sa mga matatilan yung nagsulat. Diba? Tapos pagka nasulat tayo, salamat, meron na tayo. Tatago
Tapos
na.
pag may pumutok, pupuntahan yun.
Yes. Ang nakita namin na what's working is if these guidelines are developed by the body, once they undergo this orientation, and then
sila mismo ang gumawa.
Kita nila na ito pala ay tungkol sa sarili ko din, sa community natin, at saka sa ministry. By the time they get to, after this first part, by the time they get to the guidelines, sila na mismo ang nagsasabi, dapat pala tayo, ganito tayo sa community natin. Dapat pala ganito ako. Dapat pala ganyan ang ating ministry. So, by the end of our workshop, makikita mo yung sense of ownership tumataas. Then, so those are just 5 to 8 days. And we give this many requests that we have are for the presbyterians. But there are now also other schools.
Punong-puno na po ang kalendaryo ni Titay hanggang next year.
Then we just finished, and for me, this is really very inspiring. We just finished a 5-week, 6-week program for the metropolitans of Cebu and ano pa ba yung ng Palo ba yun? Tapos so we were working with 11 dioceses for 1.5 months. Ikaw nga yung aming di ba? And the idea there was to develop guidelines, plan, kasi sila yung magiging teams ito 3 to 5 persons. Yung Cebu 10 By the time they finished, sila na ang safeguarding teams ng diocese nila. And so
parang trainers training.
At saka team talaga. No? So 5 weeks yon. And then, pero ang nakita namin dito na all of this that they do, we can give them all the technicalities, but all of this is really the formation. So in all of our programs, palagi yung nakalagay yan sa structure of spirituality. Umaga may yung holy hour, hapon may misa.
Ang ganda nga kasi mga pari kayo magdasal.
And this is what I find very inspiring. Kasi noon ang iniisip ko bilang Lena, ang titigas ng mga ulo na yan, mga jaded na yan, ganito. But actually, almost never ko nakita yung talagang actively resistant. Why? Because then through the process of reflecting about this and looking at this na tungkol pala ito sa akin. And we've had lay also for this, tungkol pala ito sa akin, sa aking pamilya, sa aking community, and then how I do my my ministry. makikita mo yung turnaround. So it's a process of conversion. At makita mo just by immersing them in this atmosphere of being able to relate all of this with the relationship with God, it comes out very differently. Very different. So for me, it's very inspiring.
So just to clarify, so the CSI of Emmaus is into formation and education. So you're not involved in, like, for example, dealing with the victims.
Okay. We are more of an educational outfit and a research consultancy.
Okay.
But what we do, kasi usually ang mangyayari sa amin, pag nagbibigay kami ng seminar o nalalaman na nila ang trabaho, may mga inevitably, meron akong ganito.
Oh, correct.
So what we do is to give, at sabi ko nga, kailangan natin in every team, wherever you are in the Philippines or wherever you are, you have to have a list of resources.
Yun.
Pag merong problema, sino ang mga psychologist na pwede nilang puntahan?
Referrals.
Psychiatrist, mga police, DSW, o sinong makakatrabaho sa spiritual directors. So, yan ang, we refer them out. Ang maganda sa amin kasi, although, mas maganda sa amin kasi we are attached to Emmaus na merong mga counselors
mga ganon.
dyan, at saka mga
Correct. So you can refer them.
We can, so hopefully, makakuha sila. Pero kung wala, merong iba.
Okay. So kanina nabanggit mo na ito, but so you give educational formative training, and ang legs ng modules niyo ng training ay yung tatlo, yung tripod, sabi mo. So safe me, safe community, and safe ministry.
Tapos grounded doon sa principles ng safeguarding, consistent with the gospels of the
Can you just elaborate a bit? What do you mean by safe self?
Safe self. Parang practically speaking, ganito lang na ako, when I relate with myself, kapag may mga trials ako, may mga problema, what do I do? Yung bang mga ginagawa ko, lalong nakakasira sa akin. When people relate to me, when I deal with them, do they feel safe with me?
Yun.
And a lot of times, makikita mo yan. Nakikita ko yan sa clinical practice na makikita mo dyan, it's really how they face their difficulties.
Yeah.
It's their coping, it's their mindset, So, ang ano dito is, how safe am I and do I seek the help that I need? Kasi ang makikita ko yan sa clinical practice. Dito pupunta, nagkalat na. Pero makikita mo, wala naman sigurong taong talagang evil na gusto talaga Kaya lang, bad choices, and then yung makikita
napabayaan,
mo, walang support, isolated, And of course, the organization also may nakita ng mga red flags, walang ginawa, So parang kung meron na sana dito pala, may mga lumalabas ng issue, humingi na ng tulong, o kaya naputol na, hindi kailangan.
So parang you're gauging yung psychological maturity mo.
Affective maturity.
How do I cope with ganyan?
Sexuality.
Yes,
so how sexually mature are you?
Yes,
What is your spirituality?
Okay.
How central is
prayer
to you. Makita mo yan sa unang nawawala yung because they're so busy.
What about yung
sa safe community? Safe community naman is in order for this safe self to be nurtured, it really helps that you have a family or a community that nurtures you, that supports you, that does not ridicule you, does not discriminate you, calls you out about what you're doing wrong, and then supports you. And when you have and you can be open with them. Kasi ang nakikita ko, yung iba, pag may mga problema na and they do not feel safe in their community, hahanap ng support system sa labas. And then, before you know it, may mga nangyari na-compromise na.
Yes.
So, really, this is the challenge. What does the organization do, or the community, the community do to be able to make people safe? Then, hopefully, so ito yung so how do you deal with differences, with conflicts? What are your sense of boundaries? Your relational dynamics? Ano yung mga dynamics ninyo dyan, no? How do you, ang maganda pa, ang isa kong gustong maano dyan is, as a community, are we aware of, do we really nurture why we are together? Hindi lang lahat na problema. Are we conscious? Are we proactive?
Do we celebrate one another, di ba? Yeah.
Correct. It's really just a coming home to what's supposed to be your home.
Minsan may mga biro kami na parang, ano to, boarding house lang, di ba? We are a community, we're not a boarding house.
So, in fact, sabi ng isang very, to me, very striking, she worked with, yung sa Cebu namin, she worked with children and women for the last 20, 30 years. At sinabi niya, dahil nga sa incest, ang laki ang taas ng ating sa incest. You know, for a lot of children, their homes are the most dangerous places.
Wow.
The home is the most dangerous
ang lungkot nun.
And that is not something we talk about.
Yeah.
No? That is kasi it's very destabilizing for the family. And also, inaano natin, atin lang to, sa pamilya lang to. But if you look at it as a crime, it's something that has to be reported.
Yeah.
Kaya lang, kapag ni-report mo yan, bawa tatay, siya yung breadwinner.
Yun, lagi.
Anong mangyayari na sa atin? Diba?
Actually, ganyan yung balita lagi eh. Yung mga nanay, ayaw i-report si tatay o si kuya kasi nga, yun yung mga breadwinners.
So ito, the home can be the most dangerous place for a child.
What about finally yung ministry? What is a safe
ministry?
ministry?
Naman is ensuring that you are creating and maintaining a safe environment for everyone. Yung mga nagtatrabaho, yung pinagsisilbihan nyo, yung dumadaan sa inyo, so that everyone who enters your premises know that it has parang a code of conduct. There are behaviors that are not
code of
accepted,
conduct,
that are not accepted, and if somebody reports, that person will be listened to, not blamed, not trivialized, not minimized, and there will be something, may accountability, may transparency in the processes. So even for example, kahit yung mga physical spaces, no? How safe are your physical spaces? Masyado bang madilim yan? Madali ba dyan lumiko at saka gumawa ng hanky-panky? Diba? Or
kailangan yata, magandang idea yan.
Itong mga glasses na ito, mga kwarto, pag pumasok na kayo, wala na kaming alam. Diba? So all of this na all the elements of an organization that has been from the human resources, from even the money, even the programs, the way you know the people you serve. How do you know that some children are vulnerable? How do you know that there are people in your organization that have red flags of an abuser? And what do you do about that? Kasi ang importante dyan basically sa organisasyon, you want that your organization is so safe that it is very difficult. You want to make your organization in an outfit that is very difficult to create this crime.
Okay.
So ibig sabihin, titingnan mo lahat na aspects, mga tao, yung mga polisiya ninyo, mga programa
yung
ninyo,
mismong physical environment,
lahat yan. Pero ang sinasabi na baka para na tayo ng mga robot, parang lahat na tayo takot. Lahat na tayo takot to relate with one another.
Hindi naman
Because ibig
siguro.
sabihin, kasi kung hindi na kita pwedeng ganunin, hindi na pwede mag-submit well, this is what I always say.
Di ba parang swing naman yan sa
Correct. Kasi
another extreme.
Kung wala na yung spontaneity.
Robot na
tayo, di ba? Hindi na tayo nakakapag-touch. Touch is a very basic human need, and it makes us alive. And there is a cost naman kung hindi na tayo lahat tayo. But what I always say is this, it is for us, to do the heavy lifting. It is for us, now that we know this perspective, that we have to be respectful, we have to have dignity for everyone, not only for ourselves. Tayo na ngayon ang titingin saan sa kultura natin. Ano yung mga bagay sa atin na makakatulong sa atin na maging respectful without being abusive and without being disrespectful. Tayo na yon. That's why pagdating sa mga good touch, bad touch, inappropriate touch, appropriate touch, tayo yan. And ang feeling ko naman na hindi naman tayo wala niyan. except that we have to do the heavy lifting. That's why it is important yung sense of boundary. Ano ibig sabihin ng sense of boundary? Ito alam ko na dahil ganyan ang relasyon namin, no? Ganyan ang relasyon namin, meron bang kumbaga na may mga psychological na hanggang dyan lang kami. But within this distance, we can be friendly, we can be respectful, no? We can celebrate in our relationship. The way I will touch you, the way I will touch him, the way I will touch my friend, my husband, or my children will be different because I know, kailangan alam natin, ano nga ba talaga ang uri ng relasyon ko dito? Ano ang, within these boundaries, anong responsibilidad ko? Lalo na kung meron akong responsibility for anyone, no? At paano ko to, within that, how can we celebrate being humans?
Yeah. Nabanggit mo yung culture, ano? Is there something in the Philippine culture that kumbaga does not make work environment safe?
Oo.
Diba yung...
Oo. Ano tayo takot tayo sa authority
Okay.
So, hindi tayo, kita mo sa ibang mga, they will just call out their bosses.
Tama.
No!
Masyado tayong...
Don't do that to me. Sa atin, pag na yung may authority sa atin.
Okay.
Kahit
That's
sino man
one,
yan, parang tayo. That's why we have to educate people.
Yes.
Kaysa mga bata, no, say no. Kung sa mga bata, say no, run away, and tell.
Yan.
Tayo, kailangan kahit kalalaki na na hinaharas o babae, we have to understand. That's why we have to training on safety. It's for everyone. Then I can say na teka muna. It's always, how do I feel already? I do not feel safe anymore. I can call out. And if the organization has guidelines, hindi mo sasabihin, hindi, biro lang naman. Nandoon sa guidelines Nandoon sa guidelines na you do not want to make people feel tapos na.
Okay, hindi, babatiin lang natin yung ating mga viewers. Nagmamadali. Okay. We would like to greet our viewers. Si Jenny Chua, si Lester Menjola. I agree with you, Father. I think in the parish setting, si Father is the most powerful person. Walang pwedeng sumalungat at tumutol. I think that has an impact on how priests behave. Oy, Lester, meron kang hugot. Okay. Si Jamie, sabi niya, good morning, Doc, Titay, and Father Nono. Si Jamie, kapitbahay nyo. Si LC. Dito lang. Okay. So, but we have to wrap up, mga katipuneros. So, how do people contact your institute, or are you still accepting? Hindi na, no? Hanggang next year po, punong-puno na sila.
Sabi namin, wag muna tayo karoon ng online presence kasi baka dumagsa sa atin.
Oo nga.
Nandiyan kami sa third floor. We are connected with
Emmaus.
Hindi ko alam ang landline, but we can be contacted through Emmaus.
Okay, so 8426601, that's the trunk line of the Ateneo, and just ask to be connected to Emmaus, and Emmaus
CSI
will connect you to CSI. So that's it. 8426601. Naging porter ako sa Loyola House.
Talaga?
Kaya alam ko yan. Okay, so that's the general trunk line of the Ateneo. Well, dapat may part 2 ito, no? Pero thank you so much, Miss Titay.
Salamat din.
Siguro parting words para sa Ateneo community.
Okay.
Na, as you know, may mga problema ngayon ng Ateneo.
Correct.
What would be your parting words?
The important thing is, whether it can be very distressing, destabilizing to listen to all this frustrated voice, this anger, they have to be listened to. They have to be listened to, because if they do not feel listened to, it will not die down. At the same time, this can be an opportunity to really look into their own selves, the organization. What is it that we can do so that their cries will be assuaged, and we can really create a safe environment for everyone. Kailangan, do not importante, do not victim blame, do not minimize, just listen and to see anong sinasabi nito.
So parang teaching moment,
Yes. Whether it's very destabilizing, whether you feel it's unfair, whether it's because they are saying something.
Yeah.
And it costs a lot for
Yeah.
people to speak out.
Yes.
It's very difficult for victims to speak out. It's very difficult. It takes a lot of courage. Some people go through life without ever speaking about it. That's why we call it an unspeakable trauma.
Yeah.
People who are abused, for the most part, they cannot speak
Yeah.
about it. They cannot speak about it. And for them to decide to come out of that isolation, out of that, it takes a lot of courage. Listen.
Okay, thank you so much, Miss Titay. Marami
you.
kaming natutunan ngayon, ano? And of course, pwede na lang po kayong tumawag sa kanila. Once again, the trunk line of the CSI through Emmaus, through Ateneo is 8426601. Actually, nakuha niya yung number ninyo, ano? Okay, CSI mobile number 0916-21-26672. Once again, 0916-21-26672. Or you can also email them at csi.asiapacific.gmail.com. Wow, Asia Pacific sila kasi mas malaki ang sakop nila. Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Titay Vina. And sana po nakatulong tayo, no? Again, we are involved in education and formation. So sana po nakatulong itong show na to. Please spread the word around. Maraming salamat po. Hanggang bukas. Ito po ang Jesuit Hour and I'm your host, Father Nono Alfonso SJ. Keep safe.
The Jesuit Hour. Get to know the Jesuits. Discover their spirituality, their history, their ministries. The Jesuit Hour. Anything Jesuit, everything Jesuit. The Jesuit Hour.